Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I am the vice chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Craig, I can't really go much further into this. Why? Valentine's Day? Sweet? Is that it? Yeah, okay. There are like 7 levels of hell that are going to come after you for this one. Today we're talking about the C-141, the Starlifter from Lockheed, but first I'm going to attempt to remove the berry head. Gosh, that actually came off pretty easy. He puts on his glasses in case he takes the berry in the face. I'm going to put my glasses back on, and we're talking about the C-141, the Starlifter. This is a Lockheed product. Now, the C-141, you know, when I was a kid, and I was like, you know, I was a Vietnam era kid, I remember these a lot, especially when they evacuated the, you know, the POWs and all that stuff. They had the Hanoi Express, which was one of these airplanes. I remember them a lot. This is actually one airplane. It's not a fabulous airplane. It's not a fighter. It's not anything like that. But I was actually really sad when they retired it because it actually meant something to me with those hostages, and it was kind of like passing into history. So I'm going to throw up a plan view of the C-141. This is now the culmination. We have talked about the C-124 and the C-133, which were purpose-built transports that were built really at the end of the Cold War to give the United States more heavy lift capacity, and in some cases, as we showed with the 133, the ability to move rockets and some things around. This aircraft was actually built out of an RFP. Boeing, Lockheed, and General Dynamics responded, and that was to come up with essentially the replacement for those aircraft. We also built the C-135, which was a stopgap. Greg can throw up a plan view or a picture of that airplane. But the idea was that the United States was now, with the C-141, was going to take advantage of jet propulsion and get an airplane that was pretty fast. This aircraft actually, maximum speed was 567 miles an hour, which was a couple hundred miles an hour faster, had much better heavy lift capacity, had a rear opening for the deck. I think the deck was only about 50 inches off the ground, so you could see how low it sits. It could easily load gear in and out. It wasn't perfect, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, but the Air Force saw it and they said, we want that bad boy. So Lockheed knocked out a model that was called the Lockheed Model 300. Very creative, my catif assistant, and we away they went. Now, the aircraft, to show you, and we've talked about how woefully unprepared the United States was in airlift, they were actually going into production while they were still finishing up testing on this. So the aircraft did a first flight in 1963. It was introduced in 1965. It was actually produced from 1963 to 1968. It was retired in 2006, but there's a lot going on in it. They literally, this was an airplane that they literally flew the wings off of. The aircraft, and I'll talk about it in a little while, had a service life of 30,000 hours. That was the airframe rating. They hit that in like the early 90s. And so they had real challenges with this, and that they didn't have enough of them, and they flew the heck out of them. So much so that after the Gulf War, the General Accounting Office came back and said, because at that point a lot of them were timed out and they were being either retired or severely restricted, the GAO said that if there had been another Gulf War, the United States would not have had enough heavy lift capacity because the C-17 had not come in. It was delayed. So they had a big gap where they stretched these bad boys, and the C-17 hadn't come into existence yet. So they didn't have any lift capacity. But that Model 300 prototype They ran it real hard. They got them built. There was a civilian version of this aircraft that Lockheed tried to market as a cargo lift. It was called the L300. It never went anywhere. It was 37 feet longer than this aircraft in its original form. So it was a lot longer. And when Lockheed could not find a buyer, they donated it to NASA. And you know what? One of the things we should find out, and I don't know this, is what happened to that airplane. That would be kind of interesting, what NASA did with it. But they gave it to NASA, and I don't know whether NASA flew it or scrapped it or what they did with it. But today, we are going to salute all of the C-141 crews, because this, as I said, was not a stopgap. It was the backbone, and you had the MAC, the Material Airlift Command. You had all these different alphabet soup commands, the Air Mobility Command, and all the other ones. But this aircraft was really the backbone of that entire fleet up until the C-17 came in. And by the way, rode hard and put away wet. It was an airplane that they just absolutely flew it until the wings came off of it, quite literally. So today it is Valentine's Day. Greg, are you my Valentine? Oh, you're so sweet. There you go. I know. We're over 150 episodes. I feel like we bonded in some way. What do you think? Somewhat. So I don't normally look at the drink, but I picked this one up today, and this is Gene Simmons. Yes, Kiss. Greg is going really tangential today with Valentine's Day. Put a lot of thought into this. This is Gene Simmons Moneybag Cola, and we have kind of a studio audience today, including a 141. You're a crewman?
I was avionics instrument systems.
Avionics instrument systems.
60th AMS. Avionics maintenance squad.
Oh, very cool. Well, I have a little bit of a group today. So I learned something. We're going to pick that up here in a minute. But this aircraft, in the context of the Cold War, as I said, for me, it was always, I remember as a kid, the airplane that evacuated the POWs from Vietnam. I remember that like it was just yesterday. And so it always held a special place in my heart, and I was sad to see it go. But not as sad as I'm going to be to drink this, because guess what? That didn't fizz at all. So on Valentine's Day, you're going to give me botulism. Okay, Greg, here we go. We'll give it 2 swigs as a customary sip. Oh, yeah. That's pretty dead. Like you run Coke and you let it sit there for about a day, and it's in the refrigerator. It's cold. Thank you for that. But this is pretty nasty. So to all the C-141 operators, I salute you. And maintainers and everybody else. I covered everything there. See, he's watching me. Yeah, there's probably botulism in that. I'll be getting my stomach pumped here in about 2 hours. But now we learned from our audience, we were talking about that NASA bird. The NASA bird was a flying telescope. That is very cool. Greg, if you can pull up any of the graphics on that, let's throw that in there. So they flew this airplane really hard, to the point where initially in like the 70s and 80s, they started to get a lot of wing cracks with the airplane, and then the wing boxes, they had problems. In the 80s, they were going to replace, or they were going to repair the wing boxes, and then they ended up actually replacing them. It was that bad. And so they ended up redoing the whole fleet. They also went with the stretch, the C-141B, which is, by the way, what this model is, a 141B, and that is 23 feet, I think 4 inches longer than the original production aircraft. So they stretched them, but in 1992, as I said, most of the fleet had reached its 30,000 hour service life. And so what they started doing is really restricting the airplanes, restricting. They did do like a lot of medical evacuation and stuff like that, but they started to get very careful about how they were flying them. The last major deployment for this aircraft was in 2005 with Katrina, where they brought a lot of the evacuees out from there, and they flew a lot there because by this point they were all in Air Force Reserve squadrons. And then in 2006, the airplane went into history, and away it went. Now, it is too big an airplane for us to put in our collection here because we only have 10 acres, and this thing actually has a major wingspan. There are a number of them in museums across the United States. I would encourage you, some of them are actually open. You can go in. Now, a Fred fun fact. Fred fun fact. I'm going to give a shout out to March Air Force Base Museum because March supposedly, and you need to find out, they're going to hate me for this because people climbing over the fence and everything else. But supposedly the 141 at March is haunted. And I've actually heard about that occasionally you can go into the airplane and the crewman is in the airplane. Now, I don't know if it's true. I've never seen that. People have tried to get us with hauntings here, but unfortunately, there's just nothing here. I've slept in this museum. There's scorpions. There's things that'll bite you, but no ghosts. But supposedly, that 141 is actually haunted by a crewman that lost his life on the airplane somehow. But that is, it's a very, very cool airplane. Comparable aircraft was the IL-76, so you can throw that up. The Ilyushin, the Russians, the Ruskies, they had a comparable airplane. But we've gone to the C-17, and the interesting thing about all of this was that rush to jets. Yet the C-130 and some of these short or rugged field aircraft continue to be turboprops. And I don't think that that's going to change. I think the turboprops will coexist with these airplanes, these jets for sometimes these big heavy lift fans. And you could see in Afghanistan, where we did the lift out of Afghanistan, agree with it or not agree with it, the lift capacity of the United States, the amount of people that they moved out of there in a very short period of time with these transports was absolutely amazing. So you're going to continue to see that happen. Now, today, Greg has selected, I love these things when I was a kid. Did you ever get up on the roof and or you tie a firecracker to them and throw them and they blow up? And no, you didn't do that? Not when you were a kid? Okay, maybe that was my upbringing, Greg. But you throw them high, paratroopers, and we didn't have that cool box. You just had the thing was wrapped with a rubber band, and it lasted 3 times. Then you blew them up. But you can get this in our gift shop, a 17-inch chute. If you will do this and actually click on that link, Jason will get you one of these post haste. It even has on the front, it says paratroopers get ready to jump. So theoretically, you could have this airplane and then have them jumping out. Oh, that would be fun, right? So we get fired here if we did something like that, I think, right? So click on that link and do this. Now, if you have come across us on YouTube, thank you so much. All we do are long-form military aircraft videos. We don't do any of that short stuff. We've done about 150 episodes plus. We're happy that you're viewing us. If you like this stuff and you know somebody that likes long-form military aircraft videos, go ahead and forward it to them. Give us a subscription. Subscriptions are important for us. We could certainly use that. Give us a comment. We have a live studio audience here today, and actually one of our studio audience members I've talked to on YouTube. That's very cool. So give us a comment. If you found us on Facebook, give us a like and a comment. We love that. Now, we cannot do this. I'm standing in front of the Peanuts exhibit in the museum. We bring in random exhibits that kind of tie into aviation. This one is very cool. The Peanuts, of course, all the cartoons. Click on that link and give us a donation. We can use a few bucks, and we'd love to. That's how we bring this stuff in. And we would be more than grateful if you did that. If you're educating the kids at home, remember there's teacher guide links on this. You can do all kinds of stuff on the humanities, on our airplanes. Download that guide. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks so much. Have a great day.